How to claim compensation if your flight is delayed or cancelled. Flight delays and cancellations are inevitable, but the headache that comes with chasing up a refund doesn't have to be. Knowing your rights will save you a ton of hassle if you're ever caught up in the disruption. The first thing you should be aware of is the difference in rules and compensation policies between travel to, from, and within the United States compared to that of countries within the European Union. In general, passengers are much more protected under European guidelines. Here's everything you need to know regarding compensation for delayed or cancelled flights. Delay and cancellation conditions. The U.S. Department of Transportation does offer compensation in some circumstances, including certain delayed and cancelled flights, overbooking and delay, loss or damage to your luggage. However, you are not entitled to compensation if your flight is delayed due to bad weather, air traffic delays or mechanical issues. You can always try asking the original airline if they will pay for a ticket with another airline, but they are not obligated to do so. There is no federal compensation requirement for delayed passengers, so always check the policies of the airline to see what compensation they offer. If you are significantly delayed, inquire as to whether the airline will cover the cost of your meals and other expenses. If the airline does not offer to do this, you may be able to claim reimbursement under Article 19 of the Montreal Convention by filing a claim with the airline. If they reject your claim, you can choose to take them to court. When your flight is cancelled, the airline should rebook you onto its next available flight to your destination at no additional cost. If this results in a substantial delay, again you can ask about being moved to a different airline, but do not expect this as an entitlement. If your plane is stuck on the tarmac for a long period of time, either before takeoff or after landing, you are not entitled to compensation. However, U.S. airlines are required to provide passengers with food and water no less than 2 hours after the delay started. They must also keep the lavatories open and make medical attention available if required. Overbooking. Should your flight become overbooked, airlines are required by the DOT to provide compensation to any passengers who give up their seat voluntarily or are forced to give up their seat. Should you volunteer, the airline will likely book you onto their next available flight and compensate you in the form of vouchers. Note that there is no standard form or set amount of compensation mandated by the DOT, so make sure you talk to the airline and understand what they are willing to offer if you forfeit your seat voluntarily. It is possible to negotiate for better terms, such as a free flight or alternative transport. If you are forced to give up your seat, the DOT requires that the airline reimburse you in the form of a check or cash. The amount you will receive varies, depending on the cost of your ticket and the length of delay you encounter. For example, if you still arrive at your destination within an hour of your scheduled time, you aren't entitled to any compensation. However, if you paid for extra services that you did not receive on the rescheduled flight, you can claim those costs back. There are exceptions that may prevent you from receiving any compensation. For example, if you do not have a confirmed reservation, miss your check-in deadline, book a chartered flight or a flight with fewer than 30 seats, you are not entitled to compensation. Finally, if you are entitled to compensation but the amount offered does not cover the costs you have incurred, you should raise a complaint with the airline's complaints department to negotiate for a better deal. If you are still dissatisfied, you can take the airline to court. Loss, delay or damage to luggage. Should an airline damage your luggage, they will usually pay for it to be repaired. If this is not possible, they should negotiate an amount to pay you for the affected value of your items. Any of your possessions which are damaged as a result of the airline's negligence should be compensated for. If your baggage is delayed, you can negotiate for the airline to pay you for reasonable expenses. They can provide you a cash advance or reimburse you after you have purchased any necessities. Sometimes an airline may pay for the replacement of sporting equipment or part value of any clothes and other items. Any emergency purchases you have to make can often be covered by airlines through their employees at the airport. However, be aware that they will not compensate you for any food or perishable items that may be ruined when they finally arrive. current airline limits for covering consequential losses are $3,500 per passenger on domestic flights and roughly $1,675 for international round-trip flights that originate in the U.S. If an airline loses your bag, you must initiate a claim through the airline. This should be the airline responsible for the final leg of your flight if it involved a connection. Keep in mind that the airline does not have to reimburse the amount you are seeking. They will use the information you provide in your claim to assess the depreciated value of your lost items, not their original price or cost to replace them. The compensation usually takes between 4 weeks and 3 months to complete and for you to receive any reimbursement. Airlines will either make a cash payment or send you a free airline ticket that is often worth more than the amount you are deemed eligible for. Credit card insurance or compensation. It's worth checking out how different credit cards can protect you against many of the issues mentioned. Paying for your flight or the taxes and fees associated with it using a credit card may offer you financial protection in the form of insurance or compensation. This could be regardless of whether the cause of delay or cancellation is within or outside an airline's control. For more information about specific compensation terms and causes of delay or cancellation, check out the DOTS Consumer Guide to Air Travel at www.transportation.gov. If you found this information helpful, don't forget to leave a like and share the video. You can also subscribe to iDispute and turn on notifications to stay up to date. Thanks for watching.